How can shelter staff be more fear-free for cats? It's Shani, certified feline training and behavior specialist with Wild at Heart, and there's so many ways. This question was asked on one of my Instagram Q&As, That's Obscene Sweepy, and it was specifically asked about how can medical staff in shelters be more fear-free? Often when we have situations that happen in shelters, we're just looking at the situation at hand. We're not looking at everything else that led up to that situation. So for example, we have a cat who is surrendered and the cat ends up at the shelter, and then medical staff has to do an intake, and while they're doing the intake, the cat bites them. I have been asked by medical staff, what could we have done in the moment to prevent that cat from biting? And what I would like people to start doing is looking at everything that led up to that cat biting. I like to look at these types of situations as the cat being like a can of soda. And so let's say that a cat needs to be surrendered. So the guardian has to catch that cat and put them in a crate. We're gonna shake that soda up, right? Because that is stressful for the cat and they're already probably feeling stressed and getting overstimulated. Now they have to transfer the cat into the car, and now the cat's in the car and the cat is probably even more stressed. So we're gonna shake up that soda again. Now we've arrived at the shelter and now the cat is inside a loud, noisy, chaotic shelter and they're at the front desk. We're gonna shake that soda can again. And then the guardian now has to talk to the front desk, right? So there's a lot of noise, there's voices. We're gonna shake that can of soda again. Then the cat has to be transferred probably to medical so they can do an intake. Ooh, we're gonna shake that can of soda again. Now they have to open that crate and they have to do an intake on that cat. Do you want to open that can of soda? There are so many things that we can do before that medical staff member opens up that crate and attempts to do an intake on a probably very overwhelmed, very stressed, and very overstimulated cat. Sometimes there's not a lot that we can do before the animal reaches inside our shelter, right? So I'm just gonna start from there. Let's say the front desk is going to have blankets and towels behind their front desk ready, and when that cat enters the shelter in the carrier and the carrier is uncovered, they're going to immediately grab a blanket or towel and cover that carrier. We're also not gonna allow the front desk or anybody else, if the carrier is covered, to uncover the carrier and look at the cat. And I understand that you're curious and you wanna see what the animal looks like. We're not gonna do that because you're just stressing the cat out more. And then they're immediately going to take that cat to a quiet location. Maybe there is an office or a space, or maybe there's a spot in your medical department that you can put the cat so they don't have to be exposed to all of the noises, the talking, the dogs barking, and other stressors. Preemptively, medical staff should have specific people for specific animals. There is nothing wrong with that, and I agree. Every staff member should be trained on all protocols and should be able to complete and manage every type of animal that comes in. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to have specific staff members that are better with cats. When it's time to do that intake, you're going to put the cat in the most quiet area that you have. And you have already trained your staff to let them know that they absolutely do not enter that area. You're going to have maybe 2 people in the room that are needed to complete that intake. And you're gonna let your other staff members know, because I know that in our shelter, sometimes when a new animal comes in, animal care wants to come in and look at the animal, and we're not going to allow that. Medical staff is gonna do their best to set this cat up for success. And what I see often happen, and I understand why it happens, because medical staff, they want desperately to make this cat comfortable and safe. And so what do? They start talking to the cat. It's okay, you're safe. It's okay, you're safe. You're overstimulating that cat. They might even start petting the cat. Oh my gosh, you're safe, you're safe. You're overstimulating that cat. Less is more. No talking, no touching. When you open the carrier, you're going to allow the cat to come out on their own. Or you'll hopefully have a carrier that you can take the top off. When you reach into an enclosed space, it's not gonna be good for you because the cat is going to feel trapped and they often will fight back, and that is going to be a bite, and then the cat has to be on bite quarantine, and then their adoption is delayed by 10 days. There is so much that we can show cats just by how we handle them. So instead of trying to placate them or reduce their stress verbally or physically, I think that when we allow cats to have control and consent and bodily autonomy of their own bodies, we show them a lot. We show them that we're not gonna push you past your comfort zone. They're automatically gonna feel safer if we are not restraining them and not scruffing them. And by the way, it is scientifically proven that scruffing and restraining cats is insanely stressful for them. I don't know why we had to have a scientific study about that, but I'm glad we do. For a basic intake, we're basically doing a general health exam, right? We're gonna look at their face, we're gonna look at their eyes, we might be able to look inside their mouth, we're gonna do maybe a couple of vaccines, a dewormer. We don't have to do a ton, and we need to have patience, and we need to allow the cat to move away when they feel comfortable. And we need to do gentle holding, let the cat be in the posture that they feel most comfortable in. And if the cat becomes so stressed that you start to be concerned that, hey, this cat might bite me, it's not worth it. Stop what you're doing and do the intake later. I am a big proponent on doing intakes on arrival. It is so much better to do an intake when a cat first arrives at the shelter versus allowing them to go into their room, find comfort, and then completely stressing them out again. I highly recommend trying to get the intake done on arrival, because we also need to make sure, does this cat have calesi? Do they have sores in their mouth? Are they suffering? Are they injured? We need to do these things, right? But we also need to take into consideration the stress of the cat, the safety of the cat, and the safety of your staff. There are resources out there that show better, improved, fear-free handling of cats. And if you are medical staff, I encourage you to take some time and do that research. It's going to not only benefit the cat, it's going to benefit you. Let's look at even more of the macro of these situations, right? And so let's specifically look at surrenders. And all shelters should be preventing animal surrenders. And how we can do that is we manage surrenders and we offer services. The shelter I work for invests a lot in surrender prevention. And how we do that is when we get a surrender request, we reach out to the guardian and we ask them, hey, what's going on? Do you need low-cost vet care? Do you need help with food? Do you need help with behavior? And shelters need to start realizing that if an animal needs vet care, if you're going to take that surrender, you're gonna have to pay for that vet care anyways. So why not offer low-cost vet care? You're at least getting some money from the guardian, and then you're keeping that animal in their loving home. And you're not having to spend all of the time and resources and money on staff and housing and resources to take that animal into your shelter. We also have a food bank. So we spend a lot of time and energy asking for donations, not only for our shelter animals, but for our community food bank. Because again, you're gonna have to spend money on the food to feed the animal if you take them in as a surrender. You're going to save money if you just give that food away for free and keep them in their loving home. We also have a dog behaviorist and a cat behaviorist on staff, me and the dog behaviorist. And we offer free behavior help because again, if you take this animal in and they have behavior issues, those behavior issues are probably gonna be way worse in a shelter than in the home they already have. Lastly, we offer courtesy posting. So if they can't work on behaviors, or it's not a medical issue, it's not a behavioral issue, maybe they're moving, maybe there's other circumstances where none of those things, those offers of help are gonna work, we require a courtesy post. So we post it on our social media and we have their picture, we have a cute little bio, and then we have contact information. So we can try to prevent this animal coming into the shelter, because even the best shelter, and I think that the shelter I work for is one of the best in the country, it's still inherently stressful. And we as shelter workers should do everything in our power to prevent animals from entering our facilities. If we do have to take that surrender in, I do my best to work with my foster department. If I have a cat who I just know is not going to do well in the shelter environment, I reach out to my foster department. I will even post on our social media asking for a foster to preemptively prevent this cat from having to stay at the shelter, right? If they can go immediately from their home to a foster home, it's going to be so much less stress and anxiety for that cat. And if I can't find a foster and the cat has to come to the shelter, it's a bummer, but my cat staff does an amazing job at finding the best room available. We always want to prioritize specific cats for specific areas in the shelter. And I think that cats who are surrendered often have some of the worst experiences coming to shelters because they have basically lived in a home their entire life, and then all of a sudden they're in a shelter, and it's so extremely stressful for them. And a lot of times these cats are older, so it's even worse. And more than anything, the public, shelter staff, everybody, we need to have compassion. Okay, we don't want people dumping their animals. And when somebody dumps their animal, we get so enraged, right? But then when someone comes to a shelter to surrender their animal, we are also enraged. We can't be both. We can't have both, right? There are going to be circumstances where people need to give up their animals or rehome their animals. Sometimes we don't think that the excuse is good enough. That's not for us to decide. Most of the people that I deal with who have to surrender animals are completely heartbroken. And I know that if they could keep their animal, they absolutely would. Yes, every once in a while I get someone and they're and they don't care, and it's very clear that they don't care. That is few and far between. And even though it personally is heartbreaking for me to see any animal surrendered to a shelter, I always do my best to have the utmost patience and compassion for people, because this is an extremely difficult situation for most people. And it's not something that they want to do. It's something that they feel like they are forced to do. And a lot of times these animals are their family members. And I know that there's going to be people out there that say, well, it wouldn't matter. I would never give up my animal. I love that for you. Not everyone is able to do that. Not everyone is privileged to be able to make that decision. So again, kindness and compassion goes a long way. And remember, sometimes rehoming a cat can be such a gift. It isn't always a negative thing. We want the cats to be happy, and we want the people in the house and the other animals in that home to be happy as well. And sometimes it's just not the right home for the cat. And there will be people that say just work it out or just tough it out. And no, if the cat's miserable and they are having litter box avoidance or they're having aggression issues, this is a cat that's not thriving in their home. And maybe it's another cat in the home. Maybe there's other circumstances in the home. That cat deserves to be in a home that better fits their needs.
You are 10 out of 10, always team cat, as you should be. Follow me. I have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. It's all Wild at Heart Cats. Check my website for one-on-one consultations, wildatheartcats.com.